Okay, so now it's time to talk about bass and what the core parameters are we need to look at when trying to make a bass like Dillinja or Lemon D. Most importantly, there are two parts to our bass here, and the first one is in the high frequency, often a high mid bass that is very noisy and distorted and often filtered and resonant. And then we also have a low bass, which is left a lot cleaner and is where all the power comes from and the sub comes from. So we layer up these two basses together to create these really fat layered bass sounds. The reason we do this is because as we distort bass, or specifically a sine wave in this instance, the more we distort it, we often lose a lot of low energy and power, and maybe we increase the mid-range and the upper harmonics, but we lose this really solid low end that we need to create fat bass sounds. And so what we need to do is bring it back with a separate layer, which is a cleaner sub-layer. The other thing we really need to focus on is movement. Now, movement is probably the most important thing we can do with our basses to give them character and bring them to life. And I really focused on three aspects here, and these are volume movement, pitch movement, and filter movement. Now, what you need to do to capture these though is resampling, and so rather than automating these things or modulating them, which I did do a little bit of as well, a lot of it is actually manipulating with these things live, so mapping filter to the mod wheel and playing with it live and then resampling that to record all the results. And so that's the real core of this workflow. And so I think it's about time we dived into the EMU, and I can show you one of these patches I was working on for this project.
My weapon of choice, the turntables.
Okay, so everyone welcome EMU back to the channel. She's a little bit shy these days and she's been fritzing out on me every now and again, so hopefully we don't have any problems. What's essentially happening with this patch is I've got a clean-ish, maybe a slightly saturated sine wave here, which is what I started from. So it's a pretty clean 808 bass. I think I might have even taken the 808 bass from the Jungle Warfare sample pack. And what I've done with this bass, if I go to this next patch, is I have added some vintage exciter and I've gained it up. So in the EMU, what you do here is you come to edit, and in tools you have this Aural exciter and gain. So I think I probably went gain first, maybe about 10 to 30 dB of gain on this one. But I did a few different attempts at this, so I'm just trying to recreate my steps. So this gives you a much more rowdy bass noise. If I compare this one to the first one, we get a lot more harmonics, but what's actually nice is having that noisy stuff as well. So if I come to Aural exciter and crank this up, maybe even like 100%, and just give it loads, let's go 88. So what the Aural exciter does, it's hard to hear what it's done there, but it gives it this, it actually just adds noise to this more than anything. So if I go and do it again, and do the same thing again, well, that one's gone crazy, so I've done too much there, I think. If I go Aural exciter, maybe do something like, maybe if I don't tune it and I just go like that, let's see what that does. So that's worked quite well. It's just brought up that noise a little bit. Maybe I can go and once again do it with zero tune and bring it up again. Yeah, so it's got this crispiness of the sound breaking up in the high frequencies, which is really satisfying, and it's hard to kind of get that. You can obviously use plugins like Shaperbox to emulate it in the DAW, but there's something really sexy about doing it on an EMU where it's that fizzy character in the top end as much as having distortion in the mid-range and the low end. It's actually in the top end as well. So I went about this sort of process, distorting the 808 and also giving it a bit of noise and character to it right in the beginning. And then I came to my preset, and so what I was doing here, I think, if I What I've got here is 2 layers. So this bottom layer is essentially just the sub bass. So when this is taken out, I've just got this top bass layer. And if I go to the one we've made, just so we can have fun with the one I've done for this tutorial. Let's bring it up a level. Okay, interesting. This is just setting up the patch, and I've got these 2 sounds directly layered on top of each other. So I have the sub layer, and then I have this layer, distorted bass layer we just made. And the next thing to do is come to the filter. So what I found the most effective way of making these basses was actually using a high pass filter with a really high resonance. I'm cranking this resonance almost up to max. Max is 127, so really high resonance. And then what I'm doing in the chord section, which is like the modulation section of this, is I have mapped the mod wheel to the filter frequency. So this means when I'm on my keyboard now, I can move my finger on the mod wheel and then create different filter settings and kind of move between them. So if I maybe move down a little bit. So this is interesting because the high noise has got loads of character. What I think I'm doing is doing some LFO modulation. So I'm modulating the filter frequency with an LFO as well as that, which is creating this sort of movement like this. But what's really nice is all the noise in there. So if I come back to the layering again and I bring back this sub layer, you can hear that is just got so much character with those 2 sounds layered on top of each other. But also it's got a really fat bass to it. So you can create those like digital and spirit, all of these kind of fat bass noises. I really think it's about having this crispy, crunchy, distorted high end layered with a fat sub bass. Really naughty stuff there. So that was essentially the process, and I would just record a lot of this out actually when I'd made a noise like this, quite often just into twisted wave. Like this, and then resample that out for later. Maybe play like a sequence sometimes. And then I would resample these and load them into the sampler in the DAW just to make my life a little bit easier for kind of calling back the project. Okay, so how do we achieve some of the same stuff in the DAW? Well, I'm following a very similar process. What I'm doing initially is actually creating noise first this time, and this is a really good plugin, the Shaper Box, because you can have the noise follow the envelope of the bass. And so if I just play this noise, you can see I've given it quite a lot of noise there. So quite heavy with the noise, but then when you bring in this saturation, I'm using lots of McAtee again to create this really fuzzy, distorted sound, but without the noise, it just sounds rubbish. If I take the noise away, the noise and the distortion here sort of mess up the low frequencies in this bass, like I was talking about earlier. And so I've layered this with a sub layer, which is just a lot cleaner. I can see I've filtered this right down, so it's just playing the sub. And I've got that layered directly underneath this bass. Can you feel all that power comes when you add the sub in? And you really need that to get this valve sound and the sound that Lemon D and Dillinja are so renowned for. It's all about that low end power in amongst all these gnarly distorted noises. It has to have that energy. I think it's really important, and they were amazing at that. Dillinja obviously is very well known for being such a good engineer, and a part of this is his understanding of bass. It was just incredible, the sounds he's able to and the energy he's able to give to his bass lines.
The first time I met Dillinja, he started talking to me about hertz and frequencies, and I was like, oh man, this guy knows his bass. He's into it like serious.
The great thing about being in the DAW though is we have a lot of flexibility, and so I can do things like adding, this is just adding a tremolo to one of these bass notes. So I've chopped it out and then put it on a new track with a tremolo on, so I get this thing happening. Just a wobble. And then I've also copied that original bass to a new layer, so I have a really distorted one. Really noisy and distorted, but then when you put the sub layer under them all, it sort of brings them all together. Actually, having that without that sub layer, they're all a bit all over the place, but the sub bass really comes to the rescue there. And if I play this with the drums as well, now, one other cool trick I've done a few times here, which is really good before a drop, is this pitch drop bass. I know I do one at the start. If I just go and find this quickly, and this is actually really easy to do. I've taken a sample, so I've taken the really distorted bass and chucked it in this quick sampler, and then made a nice loop of it. So if I just play this without any of the pitch stuff going on. So we just have this subby kind of noisy repeating layer, but what you do is you whack this envelope depth on full and then use this ADSR here to control the kind of the way the pitch comes down, and so you get this wobbling.
Can I get the fuck out my face furthermore, bud? Mad.
Just to quickly look at the notes, because I know people are always interested in like what are you actually doing in terms of the MIDI notes you're playing, is pretty simple. It's just this pattern repeating over and over again with slightly different variations, but most of all I'm changing the sounds and the sound design rather than changing the MIDI pattern up. But one thing I will talk about is when you're making these bass noises, moving a one semitone difference creates a really fat sound. Whatever it is about the distance of doing a single step is perfect for these drum and bass style basses. And you can see I've done this movement here with this single step to create this sound. So the last thing to talk about very quickly is these musical sections, and just like Lemon D does, he sometimes has really nice musical passages, nice jazzy parts or nice pads, and then he'll flip into these kind of heavy beats. And so I wanted to bring a little bit of that to this tune, and I have this nice kind of sample. It's just a loop from a movie I think I was watching. And then I've taken all of these elements, I've kind of added on top. Especially there's some really nice, these resonance riser sounds. Well, that's got a little click at the end of it. I made these in the EMU as well. And actually all of this stuff, a lot of the bass noises and the effects I made from this, I gave to my Patreons in a video I did last week, kind of starting my idea for this project. But some of these cool... Like, you would never make that effect doing with automation. So all of this stuff I've been messing with live parameters, and you just capture really cool things. So having fun with the filters on the EMU, and especially when you crank the resonance, you get some really pleasing results. So yeah, I've been loving using that recently. But if I just play this little section maybe, and then roll out with the final kind of second drop, and that will be all for today, I think. So I hope this has been a good insight into this tune, and I've managed to explain my way through it. And yeah, I had a lot of fun making this track, and I like the sound of it actually. I think I really pushed myself and all the techniques I've been teaching and that I know, and yeah, I think it's come through pretty good. So thank you for sticking with me, and I will catch you very soon in the next one. Peace.
That was fucking the bollocks, mate. I well enjoyed it. Thank you very much.